did you ever get in the grocery store business?
Well,
Do you remember?
I got married, and before I got married, I saw fit that I could do pretty good in the grocery store up there. I could buy cream and eggs. Wasn't nobody buying out much. I went and talked to Swift. Made a deal with them to buy cream and eggs for them, chicken. And Uncle Quilla had a vacant building up there. Going to get that, and then Luke said in he wanted in with me. Well, that's the only way I could get in then, is take Luke in, he's a partner. And I don't want to record what happened. We didn't have any hard feelings. I just pulled out. I started wasn't going to work. That Luke had it. And then I put me in another.
Oh, I see. Well, you were wise.
I'll tell you when you cut this off, I'll come and pull out.
And you stayed friends?
Yeah, stayed friends. Them called me there. Well, that's the reason I done what I done.
That's good. Well, we're nearly there.
I was telling somebody the other day about getting Mother set up housekeeping in a room in the back of the store. How long did you live down there?
Several months.
You made your furniture out of an apple box or something?
Mm-hmm. Apple boxes and orange boxes.
I bet you were just as happy as any of the young couples are today with $10,000 worth of furniture.
Well, I bought a little three-room house. You just across from Smart I bought. We didn't have any furniture. She took apple boxes and orange boxes, stacked them up against the wall. You know, the shelves were already in them.
Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And put a kitchen room, curtains and things inside. And she had several things like that. And the home ec teacher brought her class up there one day.
Is that right? To think what you can do if you're creative and... Did you have a bed? Did you already have a bed?
Yeah, I had a bed.
Did you have a refrigerator or... How did you do that?
Icebox, we didn't have no electric icebox.
Oh, that's when the icemen would come around. Well, how did you keep things in the grocery store cool? Or did you just
Had to buy ice.
You had to buy ice for the grocery store. Did you go to Lubbock to get it?
There wasn't many things. Yeah, we sold that there for a while.
Oh. You probably didn't sell a lot of fresh vegetables or frozen foods or anything, did you? Did you sell milk to drink, or did everybody have to have a cow?
Everybody had a cow.
You didn't even sell milk then. You bought cream from people, didn't you? And took it to Lubbock? Did you make much money on that, or was that just a way of people to pay you?
Just for money.
People paid you with money, and then that's how you got your money. You think you'd ever would you have ever gotten rich in the grocery store?
What's that?
Did you trade instead of selling your stuff? You said we traded.
I wasn't out at Wilson, but when I started to go out, I was busted for one thing. And they offered to put me in the store at the Mesa, a big Wiggins store.
No, my. That would have been...
Give me a salary and let me work the grocery store out. Give me part money. And that way let me pay for my own store.
Daddy, you might have been a wealthy man. Instead of Spurs, it might have been a Hewitt.
The HEB at the HHH.
HHH store.
One time I remember you telling about a little boy that looked so poor and so hungry, and he had a little bit of money, and you agreed. He asked you how much apples were, and you told him.
Yeah, he come in there, very pitiful looking, little burger. I asked him, what's the apple? That big apple, two for a nickel. Special. And he asked me if I'd let him have one for a penny. And I told him, oh, sure. Then
he pulled out some more money.
Yeah, but I see he's going to get two for a nickel. Oh yeah. He says, I believe I'll just take two of them.
So he had 2 pennies, huh?
Yeah, he had 2 pennies. He just outsmarted me. I let the little booger have it.
Well, they can outsmart you. I think that's pretty.
Well, he outsmarted me.
What about Ada Mae trying to sell? What was it? A Spanish man wanted
Cotton hose.
cotton hose.
Well, Ada Mae, she didn't know the old saying like a lot of us did. She's just sweet, good. You couldn't beat her. Her clerk, she kept folks, kept me there in the store too. She's having trouble with some Mexicans. She'd always call on me. I could understand a little Spanish. I went back. She's over dry goods size, had all the stockings down. She told me that they want some cotton hose. She said, we got, this is all the cotton hose we got. I said, maybe not. And I took them back to the store, and over on hardware side, got some cotton hose out and sold them.
That's what he wanted.
Well, she knew. That was funny.
You know, Daddy, one time he said that Ada Mae, I can't remember how you put it, but I thought it was one of the best compliments, that she made you feel good to be around her, or made life so pleasant. Do you remember the comment that you made about Ada Mae?
Well, she just always made you feel good. She was so pleasant.
To be around.
Pleasing. Had that wonderful personality. She was genuine.
Yes. That's true. You thought a lot of her dad, too, didn't you?
And the whole family.
Good people.
Whole family, all of them.
Ada Mae told me they're going to have a family reunion after Joyce and Marlene's youngest daughter gets married, and I guess it's Mr. Collick's children and grandchildren, and there's 80 of them, 80-something of them.
Well, that's wonderful.
Of course, Ada Mae kind of contributed a large part of that number, didn't she?
Yeah.
What do you remember as the worst sandstorm that you ever saw?
1930, the early 1930s, it come up sandstorm there in the daytime, and turned day into night.
Okay, Daddy, where did you live? Was this in the little house on the way to the Hoka?
We lived in that house, but it was up at town.
It was in town.
And you were a baby. And your mother run and grabbed you. She didn't know what the world was going to be and something. She was...
That bad?
Yeah, scared. It didn't look scary.
Well, I remember...
It just looked dark outside like it does at night.
I remember one time that y'all lit the lamps when the sandstorm hit. It got so dark. It was just like nighttime, and Mother lit the lamps. I remember one time that you told about a real bad hailstorm and rain that broke the windows out and killed chickens.
Well, that's the biggest hail I've ever seen. That was in 3rd of June in 1923. Dr. Linwood was living out here. I was foreman of him at fence place. That's where Glenn Ward lived later. and had the cotton sanded and that knocked out. I was working for Sam Davidson. Justin was going to help Uncle Renwood. And it come up a cloud. Oh, that's a bad cloud. I was walking home on Saturday night, walking over. Renwood's going to be at the judge now. I had to pick him up. I was afraid that cloud was going to catch me back in the north coming that way. I got in there, I sat down to eat supper with him, and man, I did.
The hail?
Oh, Lord, it was hail. It finally let up. We was in the cellar. Ray filled the door up and walked outside. Everything was just cleaned up. It was after dark. Gone. Well, the next morning, where's cattle at here?
I don't know, but they're sure out, aren't they?
Somebody's got cattle out. Oh, who's wrong?
The next morning.
Next morning we could see what it's done. It looked like winter time. You see the trees already green and everything, grass green. And I'd put a cotton net and I thought, just beat it in the ground. And the schoolhouse, that's just a year old then. See, 22 the first school they had up there. It had one school in, it beat all the windows. Had 3 stores in. Broke every window in the north and west side of that school building. And I've never seen such thing. Well, the next morning, there's a lot of jackrabbits out here then. After the hail, Monday morning, man. Well, I was coming to Sam Davis back over there to look at his place. And I began counting the dead jackrabbits, counting 84 dead jackrabbits. Between where James Saber lived and where Glen Ward lived.
My goodness.
Counted 84 dead jackrabbits. Didn't get out of the way. Just driving them off.
My, that's really bad.
There never been another hailstorm like that. It went all over the country. It just cleaned everybody up. Didn't skip anybody.
Well, that's not the one that I was thinking about, because the one I was thinking about, I was a little girl, and we lived on the Stevens place, and you told us all to go in the other room because it broke the window out, and you...
Oh, yeah. That was a dry hail. There's a big hail. There wasn't any rain with it. It's about as slow as it's there. We was in the kitchen, and the kitchen table sitting out the north window. The stove was burning. I was trying to turn the stove out, the oil stove. This is over on the south side. Hail hitting it. I never got y'all to open in the south room where that hail wouldn't hit you. It hit that table, then bounced clear across and hit the wall on the south side.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's the one I was remembering.
Oh, man, honey. That's not good to remember that. What smothers to death? Man, that is trouble. It killed some big calves for me. Up 3 or 4, 5 months old. They got up against the south side of the log fence, and they was all covered up with hail, and I didn't know where they were. The hail melted off.
Well, you have seen some violent storms in your day, haven't you, Daddy? One I remember was the big tornado. You remember that, don't you? In 1955?
27 in my cellar.
Nobody was complaining either about being overcrowded, were they?
No, they sure wasn't. And after we was all in there, well, it's 27 before Ray Maker. Not Ray Maker, but Wilbur and Maker. Why, I had the door closed and there's a tornado in our field. And I closed the door and told them, Justin, Bruce, Motor, to hold that chain. I said, don't turn it loose, but don't let it pull you out under the door. I said, turn it loose before you let it suck you under that door. That's how. And about that time, the cellar door started to come up and down like that.
You thought it was a tornado?
No, I thought I saw a couple of feet.
Oh.
I said, boys, turn that door quick. I said, there's somebody out there. Shut the door up. And Wilbur's wife had a 6-week-old baby in one arm. And she pulled all of them. They thought tornadoes did. She pulled all of them up to where I could see her feet. We got them out there.
When you're wanting in a cellar, you make way, can't you?
Yeah, and that's when that big tornado come. So I'd often wondered that a tornado come, family would get hysterical or something, how I'd manage to handle them. I opened the door up after a while and I could see the tornado. It was up there and just turn up and rip. The morning, come over our place, it was in our field, one in Uncle Judd's field at the same time, one in Herbert Davis' field. All three of them made one big one. And I mean, that was big one. It come by over there and got red haze. Where it hit that down back over there. And just moving along, looked like it's going slow. It's going about 15 miles an hour. Just picking up the stuff, just about a mile wide. Just throwing stuff out and then sucking it back. Throw it out and then suck it back. And I let the kids let all of it out to see it. And didn't have one of them say a word, just stood there and looked.
Kind of awestruck.
It puts you in shock. Well, I was in shock, but when I come on shock, I was smoking a red rolled cigarette. Lit it. I throwed the cigarette down, stuck the match in my mouth.
So who panicked a little?
Huh?
I said you were worried about the children, and it was you that
I was
got excited.
Well, y'all were all in shock.
Oh, we were all, yes, we were. Sure.
It just cleaned up the buildings who come by and got red names, got all the dwelling matters, house where he lived there, come to Wallen Road and got a house there, and a big kicker shack, Mr. Rhodes' house. I mean, just blowed him away. Mr. Rhodes hadn't been to sell it till I'd come, and he wasn't going to go then. But he decided it looks bad. He'd go down. He went down, it hit by the time he got in the cellar. And he was making so much racket up outside, he got a hold of that, what you call it, let the air in and out of the cell on top.
Ventilator?
Ventilator. Goes to hold of that, is made out of wood. See if he could see up there, see what's happening. When he run up, that just slipped out of his hand.
It just sucked it out of...
Yeah. And throwed his house all raised. And then throwed another house through between there and Walter Makers. Here four of them. Got Walter Makers. That's as far as I followed it when I got to Walter's house.
Now that was so bad.
And it went on and just cleaned up everything. Oh, it is tough.
Dave, was it you and Uncle Judd that was in the hurricane?
That is Uncle Judd and Uncle Pete.
Have you told that story?
Tell about that.
Well, that's down in the valley, and that's, some of you may remember when they had that awful big storm down there in the valley there several years ago, a hurricane, come in there. Well, they're going to get rich on tomatoes and cabbage. They had them placed in it. They was living in this old house, pretty good old house, but just a tank box house. Had a shed room built on the back. Well, when that storm hit, they were out there living in that. Well, up in the night, the back end of the shed, it raised up and flopped over the house, on the top of the room, and then it took the whole roof off. Well, in a bad storm, there's a big old palm tree out there. They hustled one another around that palm tree. Those big tall palms, they're kind of rubber. They'll give and then come back up. They stayed there from about 11 o'clock one night till after 4 o'clock the next day before they could turn that tree loose. You see, that hurricane, the wind would blow like that, you know, and then you'd come, then here it'd come again. Well, there's in water putting it up to the lakes before it stopped blowing where they could turn the tree loose.
The one they had that stroke thing on that on.
That is a big storm. And I'll never forget, the next day, the only report we could get out of the valley, a plane flew over and said there's thousands of dead people all around San Benito, just street full of them.
Was that true?
And that's where our folks live. We couldn't hear nothing. Late the second day, we'd closed up that depot. And I got a telephone call, urgent call from Slayton. I didn't have a telephone, so I went to get the telephone, and the message was on there. The folks that sent us from San Benito, they read the call off to me. All folks in the valley, okay. I just stood there. All folks in the valley, okay. I just stood there. Mr. Hewlett, don't you hear us? All folks in the valley, okay. Oh, yes, ma'am. I just in shock, you know, but that's first I'd heard. I didn't know what our folks was grounded.
Was Uncle Judd already married then?
No.
What, were you married?
Yeah.
Dave, when you had the house in town, why did you decide to leave the grocery store and go to the farm?
Well, one thing, I had a business too big to operate without more money, and I didn't have enough credit.
You didn't have enough,
You see,
what do they call that, cash flow?
if I just had some fella name.
You had too much business for the money you had to operate.
And I'd done too much credit, so I just
Decided to get out.
word off when I could, and I had a chance to get this 80 acres down there. And
I remember
moved the house out on it, and I
so
thought,
well them putting our house on the truck and moving it, and I just thought that's how you moved. Whenever anybody moved, you just put your house on a truck and you moved.
yeah.
I was a little dumb, Daddy. Just a little dumb.
What was a football player?
I think so. He's kind of cute, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. The more I look at him, no, he's not my type,
I bet
Daddy.
he's a red razor, though.
Yeah, I bet he is too. I also remember, Daddy, that at one time you had a service station. How long did that last?
Just a few months. We was going in the retail and wholesale business that time, and they chose him for one of those government farms, you know, start him off on the farm. And I had about 80 acres down there.
So you weren't eligible for another farm?
No. That's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to go into business like that. But Howard William Lumsden was going in partner. You see, there's been four of us in it. I knew there wasn't enough room. 4 families.
Then what do you remember about the first house that you and Mother lived in Wilson? Who did you buy it from, and tell me what it looked like, and do you remember what it cost?
Well, Miss Dawson, I got
Miss Dawson?
pretty cheap, about $200, I think. It is a box stripped house.
Was it $200 or $2,000?
No, it wasn't that high then. Houses didn't come that high. It may have been $500, but it was cheap. But Granddaddy come down there and he puts the siding on himself. He must have bought new siding.
Granddaddy Cookson put new siding on the house?
Yeah, I nailed it up there. So it was pretty.
It was a 3-room house, wasn't it?
Pretty good little house when he got through.
And each of the rooms pretty good size. Remember that, see, because you used that house as the down payment on the farm. And I remember I lived in that house till even after I started school.
Sure did.
And it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And who were your neighbors when you lived there in Wilson in that little house?
Well, Miss Dawson's always, she was a very dear friend.
Miss Dawson is Miss Lumsden's mother.
Yeah. And by the way, she had it in her will that I'd be one of the pallbearers.
Miss Dawson had it in her will?
She wanted me to be a pallbearer.
Oh, Daddy, how sweet. And you were?
Yeah.
You've been a pallbearer, Daddy, for many, 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 many funerals, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
That's a very, very high compliment to you. I remember that Mother kinda had a beauty shop when she lived in Wilson. What do you remember about Mother doing hair?
Well, the outstanding thing I had in mind, you knew we had a home economics teacher there. Early, didn't you?
Yes.
And Mother got apple boxes and orange boxes out of the store and nailed them up against the side of the house and made a nice cabinet out of it. Put some of the prettiest curtains, beautiful blurry curtains in front. And there's other things she's done there. The home economics teacher has come over there get a hairset and see all that. She brought her class over there. Showed them what all your mother had done. I imagine it helped them to have better homes.
Well, I would think so. That's a homemaker.
Yeah.
And Mother told me one time that she used to set hair for $1 a head.
Oh, yeah.
And she said that a lot of girls could not even roll their hair. They couldn't roll their hair for themselves at all. And they thought they were really dressed up if they had their hair rolled up. Mother said she rolled one girl, I think she was one of the Lutheran girls there, a German girl. She rolled her hair up for her wedding. And the girl was so proud to have her hair rolled up that she didn't even take it down for the wedding. She wore her hair in pin curls to the wedding. Now that's strange.
Well, that felt dressed up when your mother got here.
Yeah, I know it. But Mother told me that she rolled so many heads of hair before I was born that she had a backache that she thought would never go away.
She could fix your own hair, too. You knew that, didn't you?
Yeah, and I remember on Saturday morning when we were all growing up that she'd get these 4 or 5 cane-bottom chairs and had about that many dish pans and heat water, and Saturday morning was all morning doing hair. I remember, Daddy, when you went somewhere and brought home a car, and I don't know if it was our first car or not, but it's the first car that I remember. And boy, did I like that. I was an extra special privileged person because I got to lay down on the little ledge behind the seat.
Sure did.
I had to make room for everybody else, but I thought that I had the choice place in that whole car.
It's so depressing, I don't like to talk about it.
What kind of car was that?
Model A.
A Model A.
That was one of the best cars Ford ever built.
Well, I remember we had lots of fun. We buzzed over to Uncle John's. Oh, you remember when the horse nearly ran over us?
You know what kept the horse from running over?
Yes, I thought at the time I had about the dumbest daddy that ever lived. But I guess you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, I turned the lights off.
It was
If I hadn't turned that light off, they's blinded. They'd run right into us.
We were driving down this little country lane, and trees and mesquite and everything on both sides, and these horses were thundering right toward us.
Yeah.
And you turned your lights of the car off.
It scared me. I saw them coming and see their eyes shine and everything. I hadn't thought. I thought quick to turn the lights out. They never did hit us.
Well, Well, I remember that scared me. I remember one time I learned a real good lesson from you. Finally you got a new pair of pants or a new suit or something to wear to church. But you never would wear it. And I asked Mother why you wouldn't wear that new suit. I was so excited for you to wear it. And she said that you had been inviting people to come to church, and they say they didn't have the clothes, and you'd tell them the pair of pants you wore had a patch on the suit, and that would make them feel better. Daddy, I'm getting smart. I'm getting smart too late. See, it's a detour, and they're going that way. But you felt self-conscious about wearing those new clothes. Do you remember that?
Oh, sort of, honey. I never did. Oh, I dress. People to make them feel ashamed, you know.
That makes me think of Algie and Leta Brown. What do you remember about them? They like candy, too.
That was the greatest pleasure. Algie did a pretty big sack of it, you know, did about a quarter's worth. But that'd be a big sack, you know, be about like better than nickel's worth, you know, 8 or 10 pieces, so a piece. And he'd go to the kitchen table and put one for him, one for his wife, one for this girl, one for that, and this. Then he'd come back around and put another guy to give it all, put it all out there, and then they'd get their candy then.
You know, I think if I were a mother right now, I might want to get in on the dividing up instead of letting my kids have it all. I might want some too, Daddy.
Well, Algie and Leta, they took some.
I liked candy, and I still like candy.
What do you remember most, Daddy, about the Depression? When did you first notice the effects of the Depression?
Well, honey, it was pretty serious. It couldn't have it again without it being some killing. There's a good many people come to town, I suppose nearly every town, with their guns. Somebody shot a firecracker and started fireworks, but they didn't know who to shoot.
Were they nervous, or why did they have their guns?
They suffered. Some of them didn't have food. They had soup lines. They could get in soup lines. And then they had CC camps the boys could go to. They'd get something to eat, and then WPA, I think they called it, come in. That began to help the farmers. And Granddad and a lot of them, see, they worked on the road mostly. They'd pay them so much. Honey, it was scarce. There wasn't no food stamps in there.
Were people really hungry? Or just didn't have what
Well, some of them was hungry. You take most farmers had something to eat. But that wasn't all of it. Just get some sugar, flour, and coffee. That was one of the main things. Of course, there's a lot of cornbread. We eat a lot of cornbread.
Daddy, were you happy, or was it so miserable that it caused everybody to be unhappy?
Oh, it was happy days in a way.
Now that you're through it?
Yeah. And things got so cheap, you see, you couldn't sell anything. Up at sundown, Whitefish, Levelland, where Granddaddy lived out there, they could get $3 a ton for corn over at Snyder's feedlot for days, but they used corn. I believe that was on Thursday. And hitch up 4 horses to a wagon to take a load of maize over there and go to Lubbock and Levelland, go to town, and take all of it to buy a ton of coal. And they finally went just burning corn. Honey, that was awful, you know. I used to feed corn by the ear. We had to count the ears to feed the hogs, the horses. chicken. You just get an arm load of big corn, best corn I've never ever just seen.
And feed to the cattle?
Take it out and throw in the stove.
Oh, I mean burn it up.
Yeah, burn it.
Burn it.
For heat.
For heat.
Yeah, cook it with. Of course, a lot of them burnt cow chips. Cow chips weren't as bad as it seemed. Some of them told us, you know, the women would be making bread, hands mixing up the dough, and hard to go to get dough. They'd go pick up a cow chip or two and throw in the stove, brush their hands off, and go back in the dough. But that's not true. They had a sharp stick. They'd plunge that stick, stick it down into the cow chip, and put it over in the stove.
Well, I remember some things about the Depression. I remember that Mother and we kids hoed for Mr. Hamilton, I believe. And Mother got enough money to buy a bar of soap and maybe some cold cream and
she got $1 a
a
day,
lipstick.
giving this lamb for butcher day to take care of the kids while she hoed.
And Mother got $1 a day.
Mother she got 50 cents a day out of it.
Mother ended up earning 50 cents. Mr. Mr. Hamilton got his crop hoed out pretty cheap, didn't he?
He sure did.
Because his wife made 50 cents for that bag.
Sure did.
Now, I remember about one summer I thought all we had to eat were tomatoes. You remember that?
Yeah. You talk about how cheap the feed was. Cattle got cheap. And I had too many of them, and the government went to buy them. That's the farmer's house. And they paid $6, $7, $8 a head for them. Took these things like the big hose with
Caterpillars like
dig out big holes and shoot those cattle and bury them in there. Before they buried all of them, some folks that's hungry for something to eat would come with knives. They'd cut them off a leg or something.
Well, it looks like people would have eaten them for food rather than... But the farmer couldn't even sell them for food to people?
No. We was talking about food. See,
of course, in that day...
They had to have the money to get sugar and coffee there.
And they didn't have a way. A person could have bought a beef, but he wouldn't have a way to keep it after he killed it.
WWII come in. I had a grocery store, and they went to buying them bills and groceries. I'll never forget Frankie Moore come in. He had about a dozen kids. Oh, he was a good man, but he was one of those backwoodsy kind. And I filled the bill out for him, better groceries than I could take home with me. And that's a big deal. Better than a day's sale. I filled it out for him. He said, now you've done that just like the government's told you to do it. And I said, yes, sir. Mr. Moore, sure have. He said, are they all mine now? I said, yes, sir, they sure are. Well, he said, if I want to trade some of them back to you, he said, that's just mind your business, isn't it? I said, where are you getting at, Mr. Moore? He said, those oats, chocolate, a few things like that. He said, we don't need them, so I want to swap them back for snuff.
For snuff?
For snuff. I said, no, I won't do that. Well, he said, the boys at Tahoka will. I said, I don't care what the boys at Tahoka does, I won't do it. The man, he snorted, got mad, stomped the floor. He said, I'm going to write Roosevelt and tell him, I'm going to write the president and tell him what you've done for me. I said, okay. He got the store, he done had his groceries. Got the door, turned around, said, well, do better than that. I said, I'm going to go home and phone him. I said, just go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom. I
remember a special extra present I think that God gave us during the Depression. Do you remember the year how pretty the wildflowers were out on the farm?
Honey, that was special present for your mother. Me too, but more special than her. That year on that, they bloomed all over the pasture, those beautiful flat. The whole pasture was just a bouquet. And people stopped and looked at that.
I've never seen anything like it.
I never did see it again.
And where did they come from?
God sent them. I just couldn't do it any other way.
I remember, I thought it was real funny. What are ration books? I bet my children don't know what ration books are. When you had to go and register for them and you started off with me, you had to tell how old I was and how tall I was. And what happened when you got down to the baby? How many inches did you have left for the baby?
I had back up a little to have any inches left for the baby.
They had ration books for what? For canned food, for meat, and for shoes, and gasoline, sugar,
I guess everything.
coffee. This was during World War II, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I give you age.
When you registered to get our books,
I know that.
Our age and our height.
I know that much.
So you just started out kind of guessing.
I started out guessing, but I didn't start now.
And when you got down to the youngest, you didn't have enough inches left.
No.
Oh, goodness.
But I'm kind of glad you chose farm life. I kind of like living on the farm.
I studied about it and prayed about it. And your kids is already here, something like that. And I wanted you to stay here and finish school and go to church here. I figured that'd be better. And that was ambition was fulfilled. Each of you finished high school here in Wilson.
That's one reason why you didn't buy the farm in New Mexico, isn't it? Did you nearly buy a farm out there one time?
The old man laid on the section had been home instead of in the hospital with a boat, I guess.
If what now?
On a boat place.
If the man if he had been at home?
The old man and the old lady on this section had a good house on it. And they were both in the hospital.
Oh.
Well, I was going to go the next day, so he closed the deal. Ed Crooks had done closed his deal. We was out there, way out northwest of the towers, up on what you call Messing. And Vaughn, Floyd School District, biggest in the United States. And this couple up there that had me, who stayed all night with, they had children in school. And they waited till way after dark, looking for school bus rides to take their kids off of. And we got up early the next morning, way before daylight. They were looking for school bus rides to put the kids back on, directly you could see them.
Oh, Daddy, I'm glad you didn't buy that farm. I wouldn't have liked that.
It'd been a bargain. I don't know what the outcome had been there.
The farm was a bargain?
Yeah. It's good level land, mesquite, buffalo grass, I bet that high. Every acre of it.
Probably Scott Orwell's all over it now.
Oh, it was good land.
But you loved us enough that you didn't want us to do that.
It's about 30 miles to town. There's a grocery store over
To
there.
Portales? 30 miles to Portales, or what?
Florida, I think. It's go to Tucson.
Clovis, Hobbs,
Western.
Roswell,
You know where House is?
House, New Mexico. No. Did you want?
I think the name of this place is that water.
Oh well, it doesn't matter.
Anyhow, it's about 30 miles. Well, I needed a truck to haul the grain.
It would be interesting to see that farm now. I'd like to know exactly where it was and sometime just drive by and look. Well, did Ed Crooks go through with his deal? Did Ed Crooks go through with his?
No, he backed out. Had to pay a fortune on it. He put down
The escrow?
But it's all in grass, wasn't any of it cultivation?
all in grass. Ed, he bought a place, nice house on it, everything but a well water. And they talked him in notion buying that. He had a pickup, he put a tank in there and run up there to Callis, get the tank full of water and fill the cistern up, just wouldn't need it often.
Oh.
No water.
Well, that wouldn't be
But I wouldn't buy a place
without water.
without water.
Mm-hmm.
They showed me one there, not too far from where Ed lived. The place next to it had a well of water on it, about a quarter mile from this place where I bought. And then a foot of land, foot wide, from my place out to the well. And the well was going to me.
Oh.
I didn't like that.
No. Well, there may be a lot of times that God does something that you don't even know that God did it to influence you one way or the other.
Now on that same road out that part of the country, that good grass and all, I could bought another half section for $20. And the real estate man showing it to us. And there's plenty of water. I said, "You're sure?" "Yes, sir. They guarantee that." Well, I said, "That's all I want." I said, "There's no use to take me any further." I said, "I'll take this place here." Providing you dig a well, put up a windmill, an overhead tank, let me see it pumping.
And then,
They wouldn't do it.
you're pretty smart. You weren't born yesterday, were you?
They wouldn't do it. And there's a little old store over there next day. Ed and I was talking to a man in there, and he called off 17 different times at that place that dug well on and never had any water.
Dad, how can somebody
They
just...
lied to me.
How can somebody just stand up and tell somebody a bald-faced lie?
But you make it up.
They sure did. I didn't argue with him about the price or nothing. I said, "It's far enough. And you don't need to take me any further." I said, "I'll buy this place right here. This is what I've been looking for." Yes. You digged the well. Took me up to the window on an overhead tank. Let me see the windmill pumping in.
Well, it all worked out for the best because you got a pretty good buy. You got a pretty good farm where you bought. Now, I like your farm.
Well, we come on home the next day then after that one night that I was telling you about, watching the school bus ride. I got home about 2 o'clock. Gladys warmed me up a little dinner right quick. I told her, thought I would run on to you. And I said, I'm going to go buy this place for Pat. It's all right for her. It was. If it hadn't sold.
Daddy, I always felt sorry for the people that lived in that house when we'd drive by, never realizing that that's where I was going to live.
Well, I was ready to catch the mother, though I couldn't have owned the place.
If it hadn't been for me.
I meant for her, she accepted that. She cooked some beans in the water, cooked the beans good. She carried some of it home, washed her kids' hair. And then just light her beans.
Daddy, you've got probably about the best water around here that I know of.
At that time, well, for a reason, they would just turn it kind of buttermilky, you know. Try to wash her in it. You couldn't cook beans, there's never hard in the end of the way it's skinny.
That's right. And
Well, the good Lord watches over us, you know, even though we don't know it. He was watching that. I bought two places south of me that just sold before I bought it. Mr. May was selling me one of them. That's one of the places Parent Church had. And I told Dr. Judson and Gladys, we went over and looked at the land, looked at the house and the water.
I think I remember that.
Well, maybe you do.
I do remember that.
I'm glad to do. Judge said, we'll take it, honey. I said, well, that's good enough for me. Judge said, I want to, Barry. But that's good enough for me. We went to Mr. May. I buy that place. Well, look at that, Harry. I forgot to tell you, but now there's some fellas up there at this hotel, from the hotel up there in Dublin, where I could find them. And you tell them I sent you in there, and they'll send you to the place for this service. So I went up there, found these fellas.
Now, this was after you, or before you were going to buy the farm where you did buy.
Before I went to Mexico.
Before you went to Mexico.
And they told me they just sold it. Fellas just left out of there. I've been gone an hour.
Who bought it, do you know?
I come home, told Mr. May it just sold. Said, fella, hadn't been gone an hour. I said, did you ask him who bought it? I said, no. I said, I listened to ask him. Current church.
Oh, yeah, you have to get up pretty early in the morning, though.
Then the place west of there, Peterson, not Peterson, that's the old place out west of Patterson. That Patterson boy, I can't think of his name. He bought it. About the same time.
You're just a little late all the way around, weren't you?
Yeah, but I stole it then.
Yeah, because it worked out right.
You got a piece of paper or something like that?
Mm-hmm. You're ready for cash. Well, Daddy, what did you pay an acre for the farm?
$60.
$60.
$60.
Well, it's worth a lot more than that now, isn't it?
Well, it's far more than enough to pay for that.
You sure is. And I think one of these days you're going to have some more. What year did you buy that farm? Do you remember?
45. I've told her many times, well, when it come out spell, I think it's 6 above 0, 6 below, but I'll say it's 6 above 0. And I was going to have to find some place where I could take mother and you kids. And I never thought, I knew you freeze to death there, and I wasn't going to have that, but I bought a Dearborn heater. Oh, that's the best money to buy then. Kerosene heating stove. And I guess it's 3 o'clock in the evening. I got out and going to do the work. And then I was going to get out and prospect around, you know, where I keep your kids and mother. I knew I'd have to. Well, watering the hogs, I see the windmill was running. I hadn't cut it off yet. I freeze all over my bucket before I get back, you know. That's what gave me my idea, but I don't want to discredit the Lord on any of it. But I got my idea from that. I took a bucket up there at the house, froze up against the raft on top as it burned down and froze in those cracks. Honey, there wasn't a warmer house in Lynn County. How he was his family had that.
That's neat.
I mean, Ed Crowder come down there. He didn't want us to freeze to death. He come to get us. He stepped in there. I guess there's never so surprised like him.
To see what a warm, cozy little house you had.
Yeah, how warm that house was.
What year did you build the new house?
51.
In 51. You know, I never did get to live there. I had already married. And I remember the day y'all moved, I couldn't wait for our lunch hour to get there so Walter and I could come out and see y'all in the new house. And when we got out there, everybody was mad at everybody. Mother was mad at the kids, and the kids were mad at Mother, and Mother was probably mad at you, and you were probably mad at everybody. I think your temper just got too much. The pressure of building and moving. I kind of remember it was a little bit of pressure when you and Mother built the house, trying to decide what you wanted and what was the right thing. That's the first time I ever kind of worried about your marriage. I didn't know if it was going to last through that or not. And another thing, did you see that Daddy, I knew that his grandfather Roberts had the wagon yard, but that's where everybody sold and traded cotton, and it was loaded on the railroad. And see, Daddy, now Mother had told me a little bit about this, but Daddy said that when his grandfather Roberts died, they received a little inheritance. Was it about $2,000? Do you remember?
I don't know now what it was.
Seemed like Mother told me $2,000 one time, but that's what he bought the little house with. Then he used the little house to make a down payment on their first farm because it didn't have a house on it. That was improving the farm. Then they used that farm to buy the
I guess that's about it. I guess it's about $220 too.
Mother said $2,000, Daddy. Mother told me $2,000.
Not for each child.
Not for each child. Now this is your where did you get the Roberts? Ike Roberts was his mother's father. Okay, so it was his grandmother on his mother's side. I know something that you don't know that I know. Mother told me, and I wish you would tell and share it with us on this tape, about when they were pouring the foundation, what you did.
Oh.
On the Cornerstone part of it.
Sure am. Woman tells about when we were building this new house, Edward Brothers, that Satan, they were concrete men. And they had been, he and his dad and his granddaddy, they'd all concrete men went back on it. Well, I made a deal with him to lay the foundation. And I told him I had a request I wanted to make of them. They said, okay, I said, what's that? I said, one of them, I want a compass. I want you to have a good compass. I want this house set directly north and south. Now, I've been in so many, like just a little bit this way or that way. I said, I want it to point north. And I said, another thing I'm wanting, I've got the family Bible. I want to put it in the corner, right-hand corner in front there. They said, okay, they'd do that. So I got the Bible out, my home Bible. It's been read over and over. I wrapped it up in oilcloth. We put it in the corner, the right-hand corner. And I'm sure it's still there.
Mother said you put on the first page, "In God We Trust," and signed everybody's name.
Yeah, there's just a man that I put on there then, in God we trust. And I put all of our names on it.
You know what, Daddy? That makes a pretty good foundation, doesn't it?
It makes a good foundation. Sure.
Perfect foundation. Did you and Mother get in a few little scraps while you were trying to build that house? A few little arguments?
Sure is one fool. We got in a few arguments. I guess a little bit. We'd have it fixed this way, the outline to do, and she'd want some changes. Well, we'd make them, but you just don't know what it is if you get a wife making changes for you when you're building a new house.
I can imagine, Daddy. I don't think you're very unique, though. I've heard of a lot of couples while they're trying to build a new house that about decided that they almost were going to get a divorce before they got the new house completed. It must be hard. That's why I'm kind of happy that we didn't have to build it. We got Miss Roper's house. I have a new hot water heater today, though.
That's wonderful. I know you're proud of it.